What's up, everybody? We're back with the Film Rebels to talk Ahsoka, episodes 1 and 2. And we've actually got the full crew in here today, along with our guest, Mr. Titus. So I guess first off, we'll go down the list. I don't even know how to pronounce your name. Is it? You go ahead, because I can't. Drew, how do you pronounce that?
Well, okay, so backstory on the name, right? So how many years ago was it that we played Star Wars The Old Republic?
Shoot, man, that was probably...
God, it's probably 15 years now.
Maybe not that long, but probably 10 at least. So.
At least 10, probably 12. Anyway, that was one of the that was like the first generated name it gave me, so
you don't even know how to pronounce it?
No, I guess not.
I'm going to say Iscuzol.
Iscuzol, I don't know. Anyway, nobody ever pronounces it on there, so anyway.
Well, yeah, how's it going, man?
Good. Glad to be here. How about you guys?
Ready to talk Ahsoka, for sure.
Yeah, you kept your mouth shut.
I've been holding it in for, 3-4 days now? So.
You're asking me every half day if I've watched it.
Yep. Schultz, what's up, man? How are you?
Good. It's been working a ton, and that's about it, really, to be honest.
Sweet. And then we have our illustrious guest back with us today.
Mr. Illustrious. I like that.
TMR. That's what we want to call you. How are you, man?
I'm pretty good. Excited to see what y'all's opinions were on the first 2 episodes.
I imagine it'll be enlightening, to say the least. But yeah.
Maybe Johnny's.
Yeah. But yeah, and then JBJ here with you. I'm doing all right today. Like I said, I'm bursting at the seams to get my thoughts out there. So let's just jump right into it. We'll do this kind of how we've done with our, I guess, with the Mission Impossible when we did several weeks back. We'll just go through and everybody give a brief summary of your, as brief as you can be without giving away anything crazy. Just your thoughts, first reaction, I guess, to what you thought of these first 2 episodes. And just for reference to the people listening, we're going to kind of talk about these 2 episodes interchangeably throughout. We're not just going to go like episode 1, then 2. We're going to kind of discuss when we get into the pros and cons and everything we like, didn't like. We're just going to kind of talk about it as a continuous story because that's how the episodes are laid out. It's not meant to be like The Mandalorian where it's adventure of the week sort of thing, where it's different every week. It's actually telling a story in different chapters, basically, like reading a book. So we're just going to sort of talk about them interchangeably throughout that, just to preface the discussion going forward. So, but yeah, just for a little bit of context. So we had, I think we talked about this in one of our other videos, but Star Wars Visions was the last thing we got. I think Star Wars, which I have not seen. I'm not an anime guy, but this is the first one we've had to go off of since Mando season 3, right? Yeah. In terms of live action stuff. Yeah. So yeah. That being said, where are y'all at on just your initial reaction to what we saw these first couple episodes?
Who's going first?
You want to go first? I guess I can go first, yeah. I don't know. It kind of, I guess every show kind of starts off slow, but that's how I felt. It wasn't like very exciting for me. I just was sitting there kind of watching. I was like, oh yeah, I'm pumped to watch the next episode, type deal. I just wasn't like that. I was like, all right, well, I got to watch the second episode now. That's kind of how it felt. So I don't know. It wasn't very exciting, a little slow. I mean, I really like the actors in it, though. They have really decent actors in it with, who is it that plays Balin? I think it's Ray Stevenson, right? Ray Stevenson. Mary Elizabeth Winstead's in it, too. That's really good. Rosario Dawson, obviously. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I like the actors at least, and actresses. I think they did a decent job at that. But like, I don't know. The story's all right so far, but like, got to get into it more to see how it goes.
Gotcha. Titus, what did you think?
I liked them. I liked the first 2 episodes. I definitely going along with Schultz here. They definitely took the first 2 episodes very slow. I think they did a decent-ish job of trying to. I mean, I know they're trying to be as inclusive as possible and appease those that have seen Clone Wars and Rebels, but also bring in the people that haven't seen those 2 shows. Since I know there are some people that are live action elitists and don't care for the don't care for the animated stuff, but
I've never heard it described like that. Live action elite.
but I know, yeah, the first 2 episodes were pretty slow because they were kind of trying to set it up to where the people that have never seen those animated shows definitely could at least grasp what was going on a little bit. But I do think that those that saw the animated shows may have been able to pull a little bit more from it. But that's my initial thoughts on it.
I'm not even going to try to pronounce that again. It's your turn, though.
Well, I mean, I get the slow part, like Titus was saying. I figured at least the first one would be slow. But the first 2, I'm okay because that's kind of like it was. That's why they released the first 2 kind of as a couplet. It's kind of, but I enjoyed it. It's a lot of heavy lore stuff in there, so pretty excited about all of that. I'll talk about it a little bit later, but I'm excited about the possibility that it opens up, and it could be anything. I don't like so it's a lot of the character development that you could have seen in the shows. I don't like that we're kind of back to the start of that. There's a couple characters I feel like that in the show, kind of in the animated shows, grew past a lot of things, but we're kind of back to the beginning of that. So I'm not the biggest fan. I kind of withhold judgment on a show until I get the full story. So, but I enjoyed the first 2 episodes as just watching them, sitting and watching. But like they said, it wasn't. The action was good. The little action that was in it, probably the best action we've got in a while, to be honest. But
It's kind of
overall, they were good.
It's not hard to top any kind of action in Mando season 3, though.
Right,
I think really about the action. I just think I didn't really care for like being like slow paced, like the lightsaber fights and stuff. It's just like I don't know. I guess I'm just like more used to like Revenge of the Sith, where the fight scene, at the end, Anakin against Obi-Wan was just like really fast paced, and like that's what I enjoyed. So I didn't really care for like the slow paced part of the fight scenes, but like they weren't bad necessarily, but like it just felt like slow and sluggish, I guess. So I just like wasn't a big fan of that either, actually.
Yeah, and I think that's always hard when you go from, and I think that Obi-Wan Anakin lightsaber fight is the pinnacle of lightsaber fights, right?
Yeah,
because
it is.
You had two younger male actors at the probably peak of their athleticism. They probably trained and worked out for that for days, weeks, months, and you just get this spectacle that's just even if like it's just fun to watch. And so I think it's hard. Everything sort of trends downwards, as you go from there. It's hard to match that. So I try to give a little leniency to lightsaber duels based off of that, because you can't. I don't know that anything will ever top that. I mean, I know none of the sequel stuff did, and so, yeah. But that being said, on my end, this is what I told Drew watching it the other day. I said, which I told him, I was like, I'm not sharing any of my thoughts. I'm saving them for the video, because we would have talked for an hour probably about what we thought. But it interested me enough to want me it made me want to keep watching, if that makes sense. That's not saying I was blown away. I think some of the things y'all were saying, like Ethan was saying, I feel like the pacing, I don't necessarily mind slow pacing. I mean, that's basically all Andor was. But at the same time, it's almost similar to how I felt about some of the scenes in, say, the Batman movie, Robert Pattinson, where it feels like there's these long, drawn out scenes of him like walking across a room, and it's like you don't need to waste that time, and it's nearly a 3-hour movie, and so it's like you could have cut out probably 20 minutes of the movie just cutting down on some of those scenes, or not 20 minutes, but you could have cut out a decent bit. So I think in this one there's just a lot of shots of people like staring at each other or staring at the sky, or or they'll be standing there looking at each other, like the one scene when Ahsoka and Sabine meet up again for the first time in a while. And they're just like looking at each other for, I don't know, a minute straight before anyone says anything. And I'm like, this is it wouldn't be so bad if they were trying to draw on the tension if there wasn't already 3 scenes before that did the same thing. Because like I can understand 2 people being unsure of how to talk to each other for the first time in a long time, but it's like we already saw that in the scene where Ahsoka's at the little temple thing where she finds the map and everything, and
she's staring at the wall for.
Oh my goodness, that went on and on.
So I will say it overly slow at times. I think it's a 56. The first one's a 56-minute episode, and I feel like a lot of times they're just stretching those scenes to make it last 56 minutes when it could have been like a 35-minute episode.
I'll say this about that first scene. I literally thought this feels like a video game when we watch her turn every single one of those things.
Yeah.
It feels like a video game where you have to walk and literally turn every single one of them. It's like, I know what I'm doing by now. I'm turning them.
But yeah, I mean, not Mando season 3 bad, not Kenobi or Book of Boba Fett. And just a preface for anyone who has not seen any of our opinions on previous content, I would say most of us pretty much fall in the same camp. We're all not huge fans of Book of Boba Fett, Kenobi, and Mando season 3. It's probably a little of an understatement. We all loved Andor, and we all liked the first 2 seasons of Mando, and so and as far as I understand, we're all big Rebels and Clone Wars fans. So Bad Batch is good too. But just to preface for everybody, that's where we lie on all this stuff. So we do. There are Disney Star Wars things we have enjoyed. It's just we want people to kind of have somewhat a context of where our opinions are, since we haven't really fleshed that out maybe as much in other
Disney
videos.
can do good Star Wars things. They can.
Only sometimes.
Possible.
What do they say? A blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while.
They can. They can.
But yeah, so I guess just better than Mando season 3. I'm kind of with Drew. I don't like to pass complete judgment on a show until I've seen more of it. But I will say there were things that I liked, and there were things that concerned me going forward. And so I guess I'll just leave it at that, and we'll kind of get into it. So for those who maybe were waiting around, didn't want a spoiler, that's our brief spoiler review. For spoiler-free review, and then now we're going to get into sort of our initial thoughts. And instead of a like 1 to 10 rating on this one, since it's not a complete season yet, we're just going to go into talking about what we liked and then what we didn't like, and then we'll at the end of it, I have a couple of questions I want us to mull over a little bit. Yeah, let's do that. Pros, what we liked, and I guess we can kind of go in backwards order. I'll start, and then we'll go back around the way we came. But I liked its connection to Rebels, which I think we were all expecting. I I think it truly was a payoff for people who stuck through Rebels or enjoyed Rebels. And you got some really nice little, some we might call them Easter eggs, just continuations of story from Rebels, character development, stuff like that. I thought, for the most part, all the pre-existing characters, like the ones we know from the animated stuff, all acted mostly like their characters are supposed to. I thought, and I'll get into some of the negatives of that when we get into the cons part, but for the most part, I have, like I said, I'll talk about some more of that later. Yeah, I'll kind of throw that out to y'all in terms of the characters and just the general layout of the world and the world building. Where do y'all land on some of that?
That was one of my positives. I like Night Sisters being brought back. Seeing a Force wielder live action other than a Jedi or Sith is pretty exciting to me anyway. And I like, I'm interested to see, I've seen some theories. I'm not saying I agree with them, but I've seen some people say that they could see, I can't never think of the Sith apprentice girl's name.
Shin Hati is the apprentice. I don't know the actress's name.
Okay.
It's a long
I've
one.
Heard,
it's not easy to pronounce, I think.
I've heard some theories that could be Omega. Don't really see it, but it's a theory.
She doesn't have an accent, so.
Well, she doesn't talk very much either. Like one sentence, I think.
She says a few things, not much, but.
But also, I love the. So there's some. I listen to the music a lot in the Star Wars because it usually means something. And y'all might have to go back and you have to listen really, really, really closely. I saw it mentioned and I was like, oh, I didn't hear that. And I had to go back and listen to it again. The scene where they're in the, where they unlock the map and all that stuff, faintly, very, very faintly, you can hear Kylo Ren's theme in there, which
interesting.
Don't know where that's going, but I like all the connections.
Yeah, you definitely have more of an ear for that than I do because I did not catch that.
Well, and it was it was like, and it was only one or two lines of music, maybe not much at all, but it was there. I basically had to, the video I saw it, I basically had to like pinpoint, like take a snapshot in my head of exactly what was happening and go to exactly that spot, and I could hear it just barely there, but it was there. So that was interesting, and I like where, we kind of saw Zeb. Obviously, we know the end of Kanan and Ezra's story right now, and we saw Zeb in Mando season 3.
They better not bring Kanan back. I'll be upset.
Well, I don't think they will. Maybe, I don't know.
His death was just so fitting for the show. I
don't think they will, just because I think that was meant to be the end of that. But there's a world between worlds. Anyway, if you don't know the show, then I hope we don't get much into that. I know with some of the imagery that we're using, we're going to, but anyway, but it was good. It's good to me to maybe see an end, get an end, at least more of an arc to Hera, Chopper, and Sabine. So
I will say my favorite characters in the show so far are the two not Jedi characters, the not Jedi, not so Sith characters. Their look is just super cool. Their character design. Ray Stevenson just plays a big, brutish looking, Force wielder perfectly. He kind of has that sort of the walk and the apprentice. She's like super athletic and quick, and her movements are efficient. Like she's well trained.
You know who she reminds me of, Johnny? Just in the reading. Take a guess.
There's a lot of material out there.
Well, she reminds me of Xana a lot.
So that when you say that, when you say that, when I saw the first trailer for the film, that's the first thing I thought, is that it was Darth Bane and Xana from the Darth Bane books.
Yeah.
Because she looks, the character design's almost exactly like it. I remember I sent you a picture and I was like, does this not look like her?
And then I had to send it back to you and be like, I'm pretty sure they already named them.
They did. And I was like, yeah, one can hope. But yeah, that's a long ago now the Legends trilogy of books that's actually really good.
Those were good books.
Probably a better deep dive into the Sith than any I've read. Just
anyway,
sort of, yeah. But
Bane is canon though.
Yeah, but she's really cool, and like I just love how she fights like a force, like she knows what she's doing, and she's very efficient. And just to me, they're the two most interesting characters because they're not Jedi, but they respect the Jedi.
They were trained as Jedi.
Yeah, and so it's like, so they're obviously not. So they're not completely Sith. To me, they're almost my interpretation of the way their characters are displayed is they're some sort of mercenaries, because he says at the beginning of the very first scene of the first episode, they show up to break Morgan Elsbeth's character out, and she says, Balin, you're true to your word, and he's like, and he tells her, and well paid for it. So obviously, like, they're being paid to do what they're doing. It's just a matter of is it a mercenary thing or what? I don't know, because it's very interesting. So I don't know. They just, and some of the things that Balin Skull's character says is just makes him a very intriguing character. I don't know.
Not to dominate the conversation here, I want to get Titus and Ethan in here, but I think it's finally refreshing to see we're finally seeing the decay of the Jedi were trained to the highest standard, and they knew all these kinds of lightsaber combats and all these different things. And now, finally, even throughout the sequel trilogy and everything we've gotten so far, we're finally starting to see the decay of that. So, basically, like, oh, these guys are trained as Jedi. Like, if there's two of them, then we're in trouble. You know what I mean? Because it's always kind of been like, oh, well, they know how to use a lightsaber. Like, no, the Jedi were trained since they could hold a stick, probably, how to fight and how to do all these things. And Ahsoka was. And that's why she hasn't really had much of a problem, I would say, with any of the Force wielders other than Vader up to this point in her, her life. But now that she's facing a former Jedi and a Padawan that he trained specifically to that standard, I mean, I think it's refreshing to kind of be like, okay, because Yang tells Sabine, like, and Ahsoka, like, if there's two of them and they're trained like Jedi, then you can't do it alone.
Mm. Yeah, and she was trained by what most people consider to be the best Jedi warrior in Anakin that there was. I mean, he was, by all intents and standards. I think they reference that in the Clone Wars, where they're like, basically, he's the best of the best. And the only reason Obi-Wan beats him is because he knows him better than anybody else does. And he knows, like, he trained him. And so he's the only one that could, I think, other than maybe Yoda. So
anyway, I want to hear what Titus and Ethan think about it. Sorry. Me and Johnny could go on about this forever.
Yeah.
All good.
Y'all want me to go next? Or are we going backwards?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I really like y'all have been talking about. I'm not going to continue to reiterate what y'all have been saying, but I really did find it very refreshing that we don't have a straight cut villain. I don't know if they're the main villains of the show, since we're, like we said, we're only 2 episodes in.
I imagine Thrawn is going to be.
Right.
Yeah.
But it is refreshing to not have a straight cut Sith. It's like they're they're very interesting characters. But that's the only other thing.
They're
I was gonna
not
say about
evil
that.
for the sake of just being evil. In other words, they have
Right.
intricacies and complexities to them that make them
Balin even has a line where he like shows, I don't know if it was sarcastic but he does seem to show a little bit of remorse about, oh, we're gonna have to kill Ahsoka. Like he knows that she was in the order and stuff. So it's just that was interesting to me. But beyond that, I don't have too much more to add to what y'all have said so far. I really did like the soundtrack. I was not necessarily listening for things as closely as Drew was, but
nobody was.
But the soundtrack, I was pleased with the soundtrack. It just added a little bit, and it felt very Star Wars. And then another thing that I didn't realize until after I'd watched the 2 episodes was that there was even more lore from Rebels in the show than I first and like initially realized. One of the character, for one, the governor character, I didn't realize that he was, I can't remember his name right now, but he's in Rebels.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Yeah,
I thought that was really
Ryder
cool.
Azadi, yeah.
Yes, and then the other little guy that he got to talk to fill time.
Yeah, the
I
senator.
didn't realize. Yes, he is that senator was one of the, if I'm not mistaken, he was one of the kids in the Imperial Academy when there's that arc where Ezra is in the Imperial Academy and stuff, and he's kind of undercover. I thought that was very, very cool because they don't make that like a super obvious thing, so I didn't
He's
realize
like
that until after.
I guess like the reddish hair one, I guess.
Yes.
I don't know if he's actually redhead, obviously not, but they make his hair look red in animation.
Right. Yeah, I thought that was really cool how they sneak things in there that aren't and are not very blatant about it. It's very, very much just low-key kind of sneaking stuff in there, sneaking lore in there.
Let's be honest, that's Filoni, but
yes.
No other way that's in there.
Yep. But that was all I had to say about it, really.
It's interesting the amount of stuff they are able to cram in there in 2 episodes from Rebels. It's pretty crazy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ethan or Schultz, what did you think?
Honestly, I don't really have much to add as well. I think you guys all three of you guys kind of said like what I was basically gonna say. I mean, like the Night Sisters was really cool, like having them in there, live action form. I thought that was cool. Yeah, like I think like Balin, it's like kind of like one of my favorite characters in the show. I think I like that he has like a lot of respect for Ahsoka. Almost, it seems like just a little bit that we've had of him so far. So I think that's kind of cool. Yeah, I mean, that's really about it. I gotta say for it.
Yeah.
Actually, one more thing. I think my most favorite droid in that show though is Chopper for sure.
Oh yeah,
the whole sequence where he was putting the tracker on the cargo ship was just.
You could hear him. That's the only time I've ever heard a droid in Star Wars. When they said something, you knew what they were saying.
You can understand what
my
saying.
Stuff?
Yeah,
you touch my stuff.
Yeah.
It was so cool.
So
he did like a little touchdown thing when he got the thing on the cargo ship.
It's a little actually kind of funny and sad that 2 of the most Rebels accurate characters in the show are droids, because Hu Yang he's Clone Wars, but and Chopper too, actually. They were both dead on to how they are in animation, which is it's droid, shouldn't be hard to do that, but yeah, there was another little cool nod to those who've read Legends material in episode 2. It's very brief, but when Ahsoka shows up at Corellia and she's orbiting the planet, and they pass by the space station thing that's up there. That's I'm assuming that's supposed to be Centerpoint Station from some of the. I believe it appears for the first time in the Thrawn trilogy. I could be wrong about that. I know it's in New Jedi Order, which is the next series after, because it's used in a key situation in one of the books. But it was kind of a subtle nod to it because it's this sort of super highly armored station that can fight off basically anything. It was just kind of a thing for someone like me who's read several of the books, that I was like, oh, that's cool that they did that. And But yeah, other than that, I think positives. I like the visuals are good. In the ships, the space stuff, there are a couple of scenes that you can clearly tell they're filmed in the volume. Like the props don't look super realistic. Like the temple scene with Ahsoka at the very beginning doesn't look super realistic. Some of the pillars and stuff look really obviously fake. But outside of that and a couple of other scenes, most of the visuals actually look pretty good compared to other Star Wars shows, other than Andor. Andor beats all that, but that's because they filmed on location for almost everything, and they actually built a lot of their sets. So yeah, imagine that, Disney. Just build your sets and it looks realistic.
So here's I want to throw this out there, and before kind of in the middle of positives and negatives, because I think it could go either way. So here's why I was saying this opens up this first 2 episodes opens up a world of possibilities. So Thrawn's in a totally different galaxy. So what if, we have the sequel trilogy in this timeline, in this galaxy, it happens. Disney's not going to retcon it. Sorry, forget about it. Not going to happen. But what if all these people, Ahsoka, Hera, Chopper, Sabine, Thrawn, all these people, Ezra, get caught or go to this other galaxy and can't get back?
I mean, I hope they don't base their entire plot of their show, ending of their show, around the sequel trilogy. But at this point, they've already added sequel stuff into some of the Mandoverse shows. So
right. But I'm saying, like, what if all that could explain why all these people are not there, or nothing? You never see anybody, you never see any of them, or nothing like that. They're gone. That's why Thrawn's not a player in, the sequel. I don't know. There's just a whole world of a whole nother galaxy of where it's not like you're at a hard deadline. You're at a hard timeline, right? Because once the sequels start, you're in the sequels. All these things, like, you can't spread these things out over years and years and years and years, because once you hit sequel time, it's sequel time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but in another galaxy, you can go for years, however long you want. And there's they could explore 1,000 different things. I mean, you got the stuff that's talked about in Clone Wars, like the Rakata or Yuzon Vong and stuff like that. Like, what if they go to this other galaxy and it's just, it could be anything. And I think, not that they will use it, but that may be, it's a way to get out of kind of get out of this universe's timeline, if that makes sense.
That's an interesting theory, I will say. I think the other thing you have to take into account, too, is the fact that obviously Filoni, assuming this all still happens, Filoni is slated to make his own movie. And so I think we have to be prepared for the eventuality that this show will not have a satisfying conclusion.
It will not. It will not.
It is going to feed directly into the movie, if I had to guess.
And that could be what it is. They all go, and they can't get back.
And so maybe the movie is about that. I don't know.
Maybe. It's just interesting to me. That could be. So they're going. I don't know.
The difference between this version, and say what happens in the Thrawn trilogy is, in the Thrawn trilogy, Thrawn is not in another galaxy. He's in the unknown regions, which is just this part of the Star Wars galaxy that's just not. It's sort of like back, in the wild frontier, like the American frontier.
Well, like where
a lot of undiscovered
was when they found him in the sequels. He was out in wild space.
Yeah, I think they do mention the unknown regions in Rise of Skywalker.
That's where he was at.
Yeah,
that's why they need the Wayfinder to get there, because it's kind of
Oh,
not started yet.
we're gonna talk about the Wayfinder here in a second because
I've got a
I got a
replica
con
of
for
it. It's
that
pretty
one if
cool,
I've
actually.
ever.
Got a replica of it. It's pretty cool, actually. Not gonna lie.
I have seen that. That is pretty cool.
Anyway,
But yeah, I think it's interesting that they're choosing another galaxy. Another fun possibility there is you mentioned the Yuuzhan Vong, which are they're in the the new Jedi, the villains of the new Jedi Order series. They're interesting. They're a little weird,
they are organic weapons and all that. That's cool.
Yeah,
It's something that we've never looked at. Nothing's ever been done with that in Star Wars.
Can't be sensed in the Force, which is another really crazy thing. But I think the possibility of them going to another galaxy is the possibility of maybe dragging in a really interesting villain like that into a story to maybe you get a dynamic where they have to team up with Thrawn to actually, which I think is what happens in New Jedi Order. I've not read through the entire series. I've read like 7 or 8 books, but I think what happens is they basically have to team up with what's left of the Imperials and go to beat them. I could be wrong about that, but
that's I mean, that's hard to bring back into this timeline because you're kind of at a deadline. Like there's not that many years in between the end of the Empire and the rise of the First Order. I feel like we're already pushing the limit, to be honest. So I don't know. I just think if they're going to keep making content in between Fall of the Empire, Rise of the First Order, they've got to do it somewhere else. Somehow, somewhere else.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep. For sure.
I don't know. What do y'all think, Titus, Ethan?
About your theory? Is that what you're saying? Or...
He's like your theory.
My wild theory.
I mean, I'm kind of just getting sick and tired of the whole multiverse type stuff that people are doing, our companies in general. Like, I'm over it. So I don't want it to be.
They're just milking us for the money, man.
Yeah, but it's getting so old now. It's happening so much. So honestly, I kind of hope that doesn't happen. But I guess I wouldn't be surprised if it does.
Well, I would say just access the Star Wars multiverse, bring Kanan back.
I don't know if you would consider that a multiverse or not. It's just
I don't think traveling. I don't know that traveling like what you're talking about. I don't know that you would consider that.
It's just another. It's just another galaxy.
It wouldn't be considered. It wouldn't be considered an alternate timeline or anything.
Right. You wouldn't have. Yeah. Obviously, you couldn't bring people back that were dead in this one and bring them back. I don't think.
Right.
It would go that far.
Yeah,
unless
fair, I guess,
the world between worlds. I'm not a fan of using that very much. No. I hope we don't use it to.
Honestly, I would have liked the ending. Spoiler for those who haven't seen Rebels. Sorry, you've had plenty of time to watch it.
Yeah,
it's in season 2. I would have much rather Ahsoka's the end of her storyline basically being that she dies fighting Darth Vader, because. If you think about it in terms of a story arc, she leaves the Jedi. During the time she's gone, Anakin turns to the dark side. She has this remorse, and she talks about it some in, I believe...
It was in season 2.
Season 2, and also I think maybe in... No, because she doesn't know in the final season of Clone Wars that Anakin's turned. She never finds that out. I don't think... I've only seen that through maybe once or twice, so it's foggy. But that idea that she feels responsible somewhat for him turning, and that it's a fitting story, a climax of a story, a character arc, for her to die, saving her friends from the person she ultimately feels like she failed in some way or another.
It was the end of her character arc for 2 seasons.
Yep. It was. And then Dave Filoni's like, nope.
Yoink.
Come here. Literally, she snatched out of them.
Literally yoinked.
Oh, but yeah, I mean, positives wise, I think that's kind of where we're at. I think Filoni understands Star Wars in a sense of he understands how certain basic lore aspects of it are supposed to work. better than probably anybody. Now, we can talk about the execution of some of that stuff being good or bad, but I think that he understands. But I think a couple of things I want us to discuss are actually more on the con side, because I feel like there were maybe some glaring issues that I saw where I was just like, are we really doing this again? And y'all are going to know exactly what I'm talking about. So the first thing is a map that is the key to everything, to finding everything. How many times have we done this at this point?
A treasure planet map at that.
So we did it in The Force Awakens to find Luke.
Mm-hmm.
Map to Luke. We did it in The Rise of Skywalker with the Wayfinder. And then you needed a dagger to locate exactly where on the Death Star
The Wayfinder was.
you needed to find the Wayfinder. And I'm like, and then wait a minute, didn't we do it in one of the shows at some point? I may be mistaken.
Well, I mean, Mando's got trackers on all those.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
But I'm like, look, come up with something better than a map to everything, please. Because to me, the first thing I thought of when I saw that on the opening crawl is I was like, you just pulled a J.J. Abrams. Like, I don't have a good explanation, so I just throw, they found a map. And I'm like, or they're trying to find a map to this.
Well, here's what I don't like about finding the map. She walks through it and does it. Just walks up to it, does it. I'm like, if it was that easy to get it, and somebody knew where it was at the whole time.
That and the fact that 5 seconds later, the same villains who need the map to find Thrawn tried to blow it all up with the droids in the scene.
Like, I feel like that's a cliche thing too. That like the enemies or like whatever show up as soon as the person gets the map. Like that's a very cliche thing to happen all the time. And it's just like, okay, well, I mean, I don't know. That's just like another thing to add to that. It's just like,
I guess
think about that though. What, they were just going to blow the map up.
That and how about the nuclear-sized bomb for like 2 small
two robots?
For
No,
real.
it was more, wasn't it? Was it like 3 or 4?
It was 2.
4.
Was it
It was
just
2. I thought it was 2.
Did all 4 of them blow up though?
I'm sure all 4 of them blew up.
I don't
feel
know.
like all 4 of them had to.
There is no way that blast
Still,
would have been
though.
that big. It was massive.
Hey, it's Star Wars. I'm not worried about the size of the blast.
That's fair.
I turned to my wife. We were watching it, and I was like, "That was a really big blast for 2 droids."
Yeah.
But I guess the whole point of that scene is to not take as much. They're trying not to take so much time. I get it.
Well, they shouldn't
Already
have showed her
56
turning all
minutes.
the dials and stuff for like 5 minutes.
Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah,
obviously they didn't put much thought behind it. They're just, she gets the map. Okay, let's move on.
it's contrivances for the sake of moving the story forward, and I hate that because to me it's not very intelligent in terms of writing a script because you always had like and I know it's hard. Andor really spoiled me, I feel like, because it was the most intelligent and complex characters and writing we may have ever had in Star Wars maybe at all, especially going back at least since the original trilogy. But it's just like,
even better than that.
But it's like even all of those characters, the things they did, they had realistic motivations to be doing them.
Yeah.
And so it's like in this one, I just feel like there's a lot of just contrivances. Like we need the character to do this because we have to get them from point A to point B.
And that's another thing I didn't understand is if I'm Ahsoka, why not just leave Thrawn alone? Like get the map, cut it in half.
That's a fair point, actually.
Why do you need the map? Why do you need to find him? Just let him stay.
Well, I guess because
then we wouldn't have a show. So
I guess because they're also hoping that Ezra's still alive too, and they know.
Well, that's Sabine's motivation, but that's not Ahsoka's.
Well, but
because Hera has to talk
to some degree.
Because Hera has to talk her. That's how. Okay, so when she goes to see Hera, when she gets the map to open it, she tells her to go see Sabine, and she's like, "Well, basically, Sabine won't help me, after all that happened between us, blah blah." And Hera's like, "She would." it'd be for Ezra, and then as Ahsoka's leaving, or Ahsoka says, "Yeah, well, whatever. I'll go talk to Sabine so I can find Thrawn," and then Hera's like, "And maybe Ezra." Like, Ahsoka doesn't care.
Yeah, I think she's sort of got she's got a little bit of a maybe a vendetta towards Thrawn for some reason. I don't really know why.
But why?
Yeah, she's not as deeply connected to him as like Ezra is, or Hera is, or
Right.
any of those other ones. Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I don't like it. I didn't like that part. I would have just assumed the villains get the map.
Yeah.
And then she steals it from, or maybe she gets it from them somehow, and it's like, what is this? What am I looking? What are they looking for?
Well, that and
then
we knew as soon as Sabine ran off with the map that like she was going to lose it to them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like 100%.
Absolutely.
Her getting stabbed, I was like, that's what you get.
Her getting stabbed, I was like, oh, so we're doing this again.
Yeah.
Okay. Apparently, lightsabers are non-lethal weapons now.
All the way through.
Qui-Gon get stabbed in like the same exact spot, pretty much, and he died from that.
Wait a minute. So,
That was like,
someone said
Someone-
I saw someone say that they've really done Qui-Gon dirty in the last like several shows because like you had
It's so
what is
funny.
it? You had what's her name from Mando season 1, the bounty hunter. Dadgummit. She's the one that works with Boba Fett in the book of Boba
Oh,
Fett.
Fennec
I know who you're
Shan.
talking about.
Fennec
Yeah,
Shan.
yeah.
She gets shot in the gut and survives.
Golly.
Reva gets stabbed twice
Yeah.
in her life and survives. Once as a child, once as an adult, and survives. And there was another one, wasn't there?
well, I mean,
Either way. Kylo Ren gets freaking stabbed in Rise of Skywalker. Now he gets immediately healed, but it's
I mean,
like
you could say Darth Maul too. The dude got cut in half, like from his stomach area, so it's like he survived.
he's fine. He's fine.
yeah. So
He
yeah,
survived with hate.
not a fan of that in the slightest because it's just someone was saying like why not just like have her get like Obi-Wan does in or Anakin in Attack of the Clones where like Anakin loses an arm or Obi-Wan gets like stabbed in the leg and then cut on the arm and like why couldn't you just like or someone said why didn't you just force push her up against the building and like knock her out or something. It's like there's about 15 other different things you could have done that would have made more sense, but like. And I get it, like she had immediate medical attention because Ahsoka was right there, but at the same time, we've seen this too often lately, and it's just becoming almost a meme at this point.
Right. Like you said, pushing the story forward.
And it's also like someone's like, when she stabbed, why didn't you just take the saber and just like, and move it, chop her in half, instead of pulling it straight back out?
Obviously, chopping somebody in half don't kill them either.
Yeah, I was gonna say it wouldn't matter. Darth Maul lived from that, so I mean, she probably would too.
At least they did that in a cartoon, though, and not like in live action. So, I mean, he wasn't. He appears in the Solo movie, but he's already attached.
Another thing I don't like at all. So, the way Sabine is in these 2 episodes, is how she was in the first season of Rebels. Like, doing stuff like that, doing whatever she wanted to do. And then we have this whole, I can't remember if it was season 2 or 3. I think it's season 3 when she's forced to go back to Mandalore and she learns a lot. She grows up, all this stuff. She's supposedly a new, whatever. And here we are, Rebels season 5. Oh, sorry, Ahsoka.
Yeah.
And we're back to square one. Like, what the heck? Like, what was the point of Sabine? Then why did I even need Sabine to go through all that? We're just gonna go back to.
Well, you could argue that some of that is like losing Ezra.
But he literally sends her a message.
Well, I think it's assumed that was recorded before he went missing. Yeah.
Yeah, but still, like,
it's like
pretty much saying, don't be that way.
It's like a Tony Stark in Endgame where he films it before he dies, sort of thing.
Don't compare Marvel and Star Wars.
It's just it's a valid reference. It makes sense in the context of what we're talking about.
I'm messing.
But I think there's a lot of block of wood acting too, where the actors like no emotion, and it's like someone was like, it's bad when the animated characters have more emotion than the live action actors do. Because like Hera, I didn't mind Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Hera, but to me, she doesn't have the same sort of motherly nature that she had in Rebels, because she was sort of like the mom of the group, and she just kind of I don't know.
I get your arc for that. Like they all kind of moved on, so I'm gonna move on and fully step into she's a general now, I guess.
Yeah.
Even though there's a young kid running around somewhere.
Yeah.
I think he's supposed to make an appearance at some point. I think they confirmed that.
Somewhere.
Jason, I think they stole the name from Legends, but that was supposed to be Han and Leia's oldest child. But whatever.
Here we are. He's gonna be in the heir to the Empire. There you go.
Yeah. Other than that, it's a lot of some of the acting was just kind of I felt like very wooden, and someone said stoic, like they're very just like all the time. And
Ahsoka especially, I feel like she could be a little more like, I know that she's on a mission and has her mindset on doing this, but I feel like she could have been a little more playful. I don't know. She kind of lost a lot of that after Clone Wars.
She probably couldn't move her eyebrows because of that thing on her head.
Yeah.
Sometimes the makeup on that one was not the best.
Some of the costumes, and I've heard this criticism by multiple people, but some of the costumes, and even Ahsoka, and this struck me with her the first time I saw her in Mando. Her, I almost said tentacles, and the name escapes me. The proper name for them escapes me at the moment, but they just look like plastic, basically, or rubber. It's like there's like, you remember back to the prequels where you had some of the Twi'leks, which I know she's not Twi'lek, and then you had she's Tigrota, or however you pronounce that. But you had the way they did which I know for Twi'lek it's their Leiku, I think is what they're called.
Yes.
But they looked organic, basically. And I don't know, these just look like, the criticism I've heard the most is like cosplay, basically. Like someone made a costume for a comic convention, basically, or a Star Wars celebration.
Sometimes you can see like the foam creases in her, like the foam creases on the
forehead meets the.
Yes, you can see the little creases in the foam.
Someone said she's got them because she's older and they're more wrinkled, and I was like, I don't think I was like, I don't think that's how that's supposed to be, but okay. Just it's minor gripes for me. Some of it, like the stabbing and the map thing, I'm just like, let's not do this again. But it's keeps me interested, and I'm a little, and this is kind of, I had a food for thought section. I'm not going to do both these questions because we're running out of time, but I'll do the first one and we'll just kind of briefly talk about it. But there's a lot of talk around Dave Filoni and this savior versus destroyer of Star Wars, and whether there seems to be a camp that believes he's the only one that can save Star Wars, that he's destined to save Star Wars, and there's others that think he's just another Disney shill that's basically running it into the ground, all female characters in this show, and he's just trying to go politically woke, or whatever you want to call it. And so I don't know, I feel like I just wanted us to discuss a little bit where we feel like he's at in that. And what I was going to say is, usually when you get different directors, you get their own style. Like when you watch a a Christopher Nolan movie. You know you're getting practical effects. It's all going to look really realistic. You're going to get really sort of complex characters and dialogue. And you
Soundtrack's always good.
do what?
So the soundtrack to Nolan films as well.
Yeah,
Is a big
usually.
part of his films. So
If you watch a Zack Snyder film, you're going to get really dark and gloomy looking style of filmmaking, and that's just what he's known for. And then like Denis Villeneuve, you're going to get like really vivid contrast colors, like really distinct the way he uses his textures and his colors and stuff. And I don't know when you look at the Mandoverse and you see what I would consider mostly Jon Favreau's hand in it, because he's the live action guy. He's the one who basically Dave Filoni's learned under in terms of live action. To me, when I see Ahsoka, I see the Mandalorian in terms of the style of filmmaking. Like, it's a copy and paste. There's no sort of difference between the two, really. It's almost like this is what Dave Filoni, or this is what Jon Favreau taught him. So he just basically does the exact same thing without any sort of deviation from his mold, because it's all the dialogue is short, very, very few words. There's always tends to be long pauses between sentences instead of like fast, rapid fire back and forth. And that's how Mando's always been, where it's just like Mando might say 2 words, and it's like, or he'll say, "This is the way," and it's like that's it. And so I don't know. I feel like I would have really liked for Dave to put his stamp on the filmmaking style and sort of going, because I don't really count all the lore stuff as being his own spin, because it's just Star Wars. It's just like it's supposed to be in there, the lore and everything. And so to me, all I got from Dave is he likes slow, plotting scenes of a character walking across, which is what they did in Mando. He likes characters staring at each other and saying a few words, and pause, saying a few words, pause, and then...
Hey, it worked for the first 2 seasons of Mando.
Yeah, but there wasn't... I feel like it was faster paced at times.
This show still got time.
It does, but I feel like
But
I was disappointed that he didn't take the opportunity to really stamp his name on the filmmaking style. And I was not inspired by the way it was filmed. I'll just put it that way.
What would be his style?
Well, that's the thing. We don't know in live action.
Well, he did all the Clone Wars.
Well, but that's animation. There's really... I'm talking about like live action, your first project because keep this in mind, he's making a movie.
Yeah.
And if this is what we're going to get, it's not going to be good, folks. And because, especially when you look at some of the, the complex dialogue in the original trilogy, you remove the Anakin and Padme scenes from the prequels, and the dialogue stays pretty complex at times and interesting, and but it's like
I found that pretty interesting.
I mean, it's interesting in another kind of way, but it's like interesting in a but no, I don't know. I want to be wowed by. I just felt like he really struck out when it came to putting his style on it. And if he's trying to get people inspired to watch a fast-paced, galaxy-hopping sci-fi adventure in a movie for 2.5 hours straight, no one wants to watch.
Pretty exciting.
No one wants to watch that kind of dialogue and that kind of pacing for 2.5 hours. Like, I'm just saying, I don't.
He's gonna have to move quicker than that to fit stuff in 2.5 hours for sure.
Exactly. And so I don't know.
That may be, I think that may just be the show more than the director part of it. More, I think that's just the show, like, kind of live action show, just the way most of them are going to turn out. I mean, because they have kind of like Mando, for example, the shortest episode's what, close to 38 minutes or something like that.
I think there's like a 29-minute episode or something.
And then there's episodes that are an hour and a half. It's like you can take as long as you want.
Yeah, but Mando always felt like it was taking the time it needed for each episode, at least in the first 2 seasons. The episode would go for as long as it needed to. So it was just like, I don't know. I don't necessarily buy into the fact that it's just the way the show is, because like if you've only got 8 episodes, wouldn't you want to move quicker? I mean,
It's fair. Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
I don't buy that as much, because we ran
Is it
into
only
this
8
problem.
episodes? I thought it was.
It's 8, yeah.
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 And so I don't know. I just, when you're trying to craft a story, it's more, to me, in a shorter span of time of 8 episodes, and not most of your episodes are under an hour. You need to move it. And I think that's a lot of what people had issues with like Mando season 3, where we spent half the middle part of the season basically doing nothing in terms of advancing the story at all. And then all of a sudden in episode 7 and 8, it just all kind of like, it was just.
I think that kind of goes along with what you were saying earlier, though. The end of this is not going to be the end. Like, it's going to be they run off, or, the movie's going to be. I feel like the whole point of this show is to get you and people excited to see the movie. So they'll actually go and watch the movie so they won't lose a whole bunch of money.
And I just don't think they're succeeding at that right now. And I will see that the timing of this show is pretty awful in terms of what the show is, because if you think about it, we're coming off of Mando season 3. You can kind of leave Andor out of it. Great show. Unfortunately, not a lot of people watched it, and that's the biggest issue it had. But you came off of 3 failures by all intents and purposes with Kenobi, Book of Boba Fett, and Mando season 3. My understanding, just everything I've seen, the interest in Star Wars is an all-time low. I think I've seen tons of people just have completely checked out and just don't care anymore. And so you needed something with this show that was going to get people reinvested in it. And you choose, and the show happens to be a show that relies on you having watched prior material, and lots of it, to understand everything. It's also featuring a character that a lot of people are not familiar with that haven't watched any of the animated stuff. So to me, it's a lose-lose situation from a viewer perspective if you're looking for views, because you need excitement in Star Wars again. You need something that's fast-paced and intelligent and just, lots of action and space battles and stuff that people are used to seeing in Star Wars. Because with Mando, it was so plotting at times, like it's just slow. They were walking to different places. Let's walk to this place. Let's fly here. Let's walk this way. It's like there's a lot of time wasting in that show. And so I think people just really wanted something that was, and as good as Andor was, it had a couple episodes that were slower until you got to that 3rd episode and for that 3-episode arc. And then it would just like everything would kind of come together. And so I just don't, I'm just sort of, I think a lot of people are just tired of the plotting nature of these shows, and they're used to seeing, unfortunately, before the shows came out, they're used to seeing movies on a big screen, 2.5-hour movies that are fast paced. There's all this action going on. There's story building and all these different things, and so I just don't. I feel like this, unless it just really picks up the pace through these next 6 episodes and really starts to dial in on some of the dialogue and the character interactions, them showing a lot more emotion, really good character moments. I just don't see how this is helping Dave Filoni's case at all. I don't see how it's helping Disney's case at all, or Lucasfilm's case at all. Y'all may disagree with that. That's just kind of how I've come across it. And it's just
you're a quarter of the way through.
Yeah, we're a quarter of the way through, and it's like it's as good as I might like some of, or as much as I might like some of the lore elements and stuff, and how he understands some of that more than other people do. It's very uninspiring filmmaking in terms of the dialogue, the pacing, the character interactions. It's just, it feels very paint by numbers sort of thing, where it's like it's just safe, and they don't need safe right now. They need to swing for the fences, and so I hope that changes going forward. But I've always been a Dave Filoni truther, and I'll be honest, a lot of that faith in him is slipping, not in the lore and understanding Star Wars, but just as his ability to direct live action is just, I'm just losing faith in him as in that regard. To me, he belongs in the story and world and lore building department, and then bring somebody in with the experience to really direct a movie. That's my thoughts. I don't know how y'all feel about that, but
we'll see. I mean, maybe it's because I don't know, true fan, I guess. I don't know. After Andor, I'll give this the 8 episodes. Now, and it may or may not have me excited for the movie. I doubt it.
Yeah, I'm not even sure we get the movie, to be honest. I don't think that's a guarantee at this point.
Well, with the way things are going, it's at least going to get pushed back a year.
Well, I think viewership though too for like Star Wars related stuff is pretty like low down. So like
Ahsoka
only has like 1 million viewers so far for across the first 2 episodes. Like Andor had 2.7 opening episode.
Well, I mean,
so it's like
how many times you got to let people down?
Yeah.
Before they just stop. And also, I feel like people are tired of what me and you brought up earlier, Ethan. We're just tired of the content for the money's sake. Like,
yeah.
Well, and Disney doesn't have the money to throw
right
at it, because, like, I mean, Bob Iger already came out months ago and said they're cutting production costs on everything to where you're going to have less money to work on a project. And thank goodness the visuals in this show still look pretty good, because, like, we could have gotten some MCU show level bad, graphics.
Do you guys actually possibly know what the budget is for Ahsoka? You guys ever look that up? Like, no, like how much they had to work with?
I don't know if they've even announced that.
Did they announce
They
that
may.
yet?
Well,
I was actually kind of curious about that now that we're talking, like, kind of like on that topic. Like, I don't know if they had like a big budget for it, if it was like low.
I don't know if they've announced it or not.
Okay.
It's got to be $100 million at the least.
Yeah.
It's got to be. I know Andor was way up there. It was over $100 million, but it shows in that show like it
100% did. Yeah.
It looks like $100 million show.
I haven't said, but here's your kind of, I guess your
estimate.
So Mandalorian costs $15 million per episode to make. Andor costs $15 to $25 million per episode. Kenobi costs $90 million for its total season, and the Book of Boba Fett costs $15.
So 15 to 25, we can probably safely assume it's somewhere in that area, which totals out. Someone do the maths on that one. I'm not
not me
doing it in my head. It's not. I have to get the calculator out.
I was about to say, I don't have a calculator.
25 million per episode, is that what you said? Or 15 to 25?
At the high end, 25.
So, I mean, if it's 25 million per episode, it'd be about 200 million. If it was 15, it would be
between 120 and 200 million.
20, okay. Yeah.
Budget.
I'd say 150 is probably a fair.
But like, how in the world can they spend that much money? So, like, obviously, you're trying to get people to do Disney Plus subscriptions by putting this out there. There ain't no way they're making that back in Disney Plus subscriptions.
Well, they've already basically admitted that Disney Plus has never been profitable. It's lost money. It's lost millions. And so they're not making any money off of it. At this point, Disney doesn't have the money. I mean, there's already rumors flying around that they're about to sell ESPN. There's been rumors that they're going to sell Lucasfilm. There's been rumors they're going to sell Pixar. I mean, at this point,
They might have to.
it's they have to. So the whole Hulu agreement they have to pay Comcast. I think it's like 90 million, or maybe it's even more than that. But they have to pay them that by a certain point next year to retain the bit of rights that they have to Hulu. Otherwise, they lose Hulu, and they don't have that money. Like, I've heard that they have, maybe they need 200 million and they have less than 100 million to spend or something like that. I remember them saying they need this much and they only have this much in like liquid assets to actually spend. So they're going to have to sell something in order to keep Hulu. I would guess that they probably sell Hulu or they just lose it.
Yeah.
I think ESPN is getting sold because they've been firing people like crazy.
Yeah.
And I heard Amazon was trying to buy it, so that would not shock me.
No.
But they don't have the money. And to be honest with you guys, as depressing as this sounds, and I don't want to be the pessimist. I tell people a lot, like, I don't want to feel this way towards Star Wars. But I because it's my favorite, thing in terms of movies and stuff. But I want it to be great. And if that means we have to tear, because I thought about this the other day driving in the car, I was like, would I be willing to forfeit an Andor season 2 if I knew the whole thing would get just completely wiped and they'd start over and it would be really good? And I'm like, as much as I really want to see an Andor season 2, yes, I would much rather them just reboot everything, as opposed like reboot all the Disney stuff in order for us to get in order for us to get something better. And I think the only way that's going to happen is if Disney sells Lucasfilm. I think that's the only way. I think even if they were to change CEO or a president of Lucasfilm to somebody else, it would have to be like, I just don't trust Bob Iger to hire someone not like Kathleen Kennedy, because he's basically like Kathleen Kennedy himself. So
here's my question. So, and it may be a dumb one. So like Disney parks, I think most of them have a Star Wars component to it. So does that just go away? Or would they sell just like the movies and TV show rights?
Well, so George Lucas basically had agreements with them to have some of the Star Wars stuff already at the parks, like he has the Star Tours,
right,
and everything. So I think they'll probably have some sort of agreement where they'll get to keep some of that, maybe temporarily or maybe permanently, because Star Tours has been there for years and years, and way before it was Disney. So
Yeah.
So they may put that in the contract and they sell it, that they have to retain some of that. I don't know.
Well, we'll see.
But I imagine if a Peacock or NBC buys it, like, they have Universal, it's like they're not going to want Disney to keep all that in their parks, or they'll just be like, hey, you can keep it. We're going to build our own park. It's going to be better. And I'm like, I'd be fine with that. Like kind of like the Harry Potter world is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's a tough place to be, and I think the main thing that I take away from this show is it's uninspiring, and it's just, I'm just kind of tired of this style of it, because it feels very Disney-fied to me. It does not feel, because all the original trilogy movies felt very gritty and lived in worlds. Everything here feels so clean and sterile. All the costumes are clean. All the locations feel clean. It just feels like it was made in a Disney studio. And so that's why Andor was such a breath of fresh air, because it looked like a Star Wars something. It actually went back to that grittier nature of Star Wars, the more practical on-set locations. On location sets. And I don't know, that as much as people didn't like Andor because it didn't feel as much like Star Wars, maybe that's because it didn't have lightsabers in it, which I don't care. If it's good and it's in the Star Wars universe, I don't care.
Yes.
I don't care.
Honest, so like one of the best Star Wars movies we've had is literally Rogue One, and it had nothing to do with lightsabers besides Darth Vader scene, and that's it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean,
They did that scene right.
Yeah.
yeah, 100%. I think that's like one of the most probably like one of the coolest scenes we have too, with involving lightsabers as well.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure. But that's where I stand on it, guys. Just to kind of round out my thoughts. I'm interested enough to keep watching. I'd like to kind of see. I'm invested in the continuation of some Rebels storylines, if that makes sense.
Not necessarily the Ahsoka storyline, but Rebels. I'm interested to see Thrawn
Yeah.
from Rebels. The Rebel storyline is there.
Yeah.
But
I'm hoping they don't like screw up like Ezra's like story as well, though. Like something involving that.
I imagine if we see him, it's going to be like at the very end of the season.
yeah, that may be one of your hangers that saves for the movie.
And I hope we see Zeb too. We got to see Zeb at some point.
He'll be there. I feel like because in one of the hangar scenes, and Hera's got all of her old Phoenix Squadron ships there in the background of all the hangar. So,
But in
I feel
Mando season 3, Zeb's working in the Outer Rim, like at a random outpost. So he's not actually with the main.
no,
group anymore, so yeah.
she's a general. She can pull him back.
Well, and she says,
She's
"Hey,
there
we
for
may
a
have
visit.
found a way." I hope the way it goes is, "Hey, we may have found a way to find Ezra," and then he's like, "Just, I'll be there," sort of thing.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
what I would love to see. What would make the show for me is it's all the Phoenix Squadron teamed up to rescue Ezra, and then they get some sort of climactic battle with Thrawn or with the Balin and Shin and Morgan Elsbeth. Maybe she pulls some Night Sister stuff, which would be really cool. If they do that, it's mildly entertaining. It'll be fine. But I think I'm just kind of tired of this style of shows, and it just feels very, like I said, Disney. And so I'm trying to stay optimistic, but it's teetering at this point. So yeah. If y'all don't have anything else, I guess that's going to round it out for tonight. Thank y'all for joining me. We will be back again in 2 weeks to do episodes 3 and 4. So please tune in. If we'll keep y'all posted on when that'll drop, and we hope y'all enjoyed the episode and just our thoughts on everything. We'll get back at it again in a couple of weeks, and we are just thankful for those of you that tuned in. If you like what you saw, give us a subscribe, a like, and we'll get some other content pumped out. So thank y'all so much. Thank you, fellows, for joining us, or joining me, I should say. I'm talking in a third person, or but yeah, that's all we got tonight. We'll see y'all next time.